Sunrise Extra on your Monday, February 8th. Welcome back from the weekend. Thanks for clicking and joining us on this Monday. You know, we've been doing a series this month in February. It is Black History Month. And the Today Show started a Changemakers series that, Brenda, you have taken on with a different story each week, highlighting a person of color and just their influence in the working world and different positions here in our local area.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the Today Show's Changemaker series, it really is fascinating because they highlight African Americans in all different kinds of industries. You know, business, even an astronaut, right? And they're Black voices who are really making an impact in their community. So since it is Black History Month, I thought, shoot, we've got tons of changemakers here in the state of Oregon or in the Northwest. So I went kind of hunting and talking to my contacts and going, who should we be talking to that we really haven't heard from? So I want to show you the very first one that I did because it aired last week. And we featured a man. He's a Navy veteran who lives in Northeast Portland. His name is Chad Brown. Is that not gorgeous drone video?
Oh,
That's the Clackamas River at Milo MacIver State Park. There's Chad. He has an organization called Soul River. And basically, he uses his love of fly fishing to bring Navy veterans together as mentors with inner city kids who in many cases have never even walked on a trail before. And it really is about leadership, about teaching them conservation, and also healing, because Chad and many of the vets that he works with suffer from PTSD, and being out in nature, it's just super zen. So Chad was the first one that we profiled for our Changemaker series, and then this week it aired in our Sunrise newscast. I featured City of Roses, City of Roses Disposal and Recycling. You're like, what? How can that be a change maker? Their business philosophy is absolutely fascinating, and they really do promote from within, and they really feel like they are giving back to the community. I did a whole piece on them. I want to play that now, so it gives you a little bit of background on CORE.
Meet the Simpsons, starting with family patriarch Al. He was born and raised in Portland and founded City of Roses Disposal and Recycling in 1996.
I never knew it would be this big.
The sprawling campus covers 11 acres in Northeast Portland. They call it the country's first entirely Black-owned waste management company. Al runs it now with his sons Alando and AJ.
I think back to my childhood and I do not know when he slept. It was unbelievable.
Al didn't sleep much because he had 2 jobs. Here's AJ as a kid in front of his dad's very first truck. Al took out a second mortgage to buy it and start his hauling business. It was his side hustle. He also worked full-time for the city of Portland in maintenance. And back in the day, he didn't see a lot of people who looked like him.
And there was no people of color in the trucks. There was no people of color in management. I used to go in there and drive for somebody else, and I'd say, I can't, things have got to change.
And Al did change things. Today, City of Roses has about 65 employees, 80% of which are people of color, and 85% of its managers are people of color or women. City of Roses is also a certified B Corporation. That means it pledges to balance purpose with profit and consider how its decisions impact workers, customers, and the community.
As we grow, the number one emphasis is growing our people with us. One employee in particular started on the sorting floor at pretty much close to minimum wage, and now this person is just buying their first house here soon. And the only way we could foster that is by providing living wage jobs here. We're not coming into communities to displace or gentrify. We're actually coming into communities to support, uplift, and invest.
City of Roses says it wants to disrupt the waste management industry by transforming what we think of as disposable.
We are looking to inspire people to look at waste as an actual resource in society. I want others to also look at people in underserved populations of color as assets and resources to a local economy, and not just the discards being concentrated in impoverished conditions.
Right now, the company is in the process of rebranding itself. It's shortening City of Roses with the acronym CORE. Here's why.
And that way we can kind of do more than just trash, whether that be some sort of, camps for youth, some sort of nonprofit. It can branch out in so many different ways.
And that is the true legacy of a change maker. Al Simpson, we salute you.
So was I right? Isn't that a great business philosophy? Joining us this morning to talk more about this is Alando Simpson, one of Al's sons. Alando, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing this morning?
Wonderful.
It's Monday, so I'm just waiting for the fires to start.
We've been up for hours.
We're like, a little bleary from the Super Bowl, to be honest. Alando was fantastic, and I have to say, I'm certain that he didn't think he was going to be roped into all these interviews when he agreed to talk to me once. But you know what? Your dad's story is just too good not to kind of dive into. So we talked about this business starting 25 years ago with one man, one truck, and one dream. I mentioned that your dad works, crazy hours and did from the very beginning. I don't think I did it justice, though. Can you tell me, because when I say he worked all the time with two jobs, it was like 4 a.m. to probably almost midnight when he wrapped up the swing shift.
Yeah, to be a little bit more specific with the clock, because I used to monitor it a lot, because my goal for a while was to get him to retire. But I would say for a long stretch of time, he would literally wake up early in the morning, drive his truck, for City of Roses, and then by midday he would kind of pass out. He wouldn't even intentionally take a nap. He would just kind of pass out on his chair, and then by his alarm would go off, and then he'd get up and go work his night shift at the City of Portland's maintenance bureau, and then that would take him all the way through like 10 p.m., 11 or something like that, and then the next day it was just a cycle again. And if a problem came up with a customer or somebody needed something, a fire to be put out, essentially with their waste, he would jump in a truck, midnight or early AM hours to go address that issue. And that's where I think people kind of valued him very highly in terms of his customer service, because he always put priority on taking care of people first.
Mm-hmm.
Alando, do you remember when the business really made that leap from, just as Brenda described it, a one-man crew back when your dad started it, to, I think you said now, Brenda, it's 65 employees altogether. They've got that 11,000 square foot facility out there. We're taking a look at it right now in Northeast Portland.
Yeah, 11 acres.
11 acres.
Yeah.
Sorry, 11 acres. That's worth noting. Great big facility out there. So when did it really make that leap and make that jump? And do you remember how that happened?
Yeah, I think the big leap was when we were first permitted a recycling permit for our facility that was at our previous location on Northeast 109th. Once that happened, it kind of just took off little by little. And I think one of the things that's important to understand about business is you want to always take baby steps. And I've always been taught that by my mentors or my uncles or my dad. It's like, you don't want to go too fast. And so ever since 2014, when we opened our first facility, it was actually April 1st, 2014, it's just been little by little growing and growing and growing. And as you can see today, we grew from a 6,000 square foot facility on a 1.75 acre site into a 100,000 square foot facility on 11.72 acre site.
I love that story that Brenda, you included in your news package, but it's about, you guys kind of promote from within, and there was, a person that was starting kind of at minimum wage in the entry-level job with you guys and has worked his way through and is now, putting money down on his first home, getting that mortgage here in Portland. To kind of talk about your business philosophy, because I know a lot of people are, interested in maybe switching careers or making their business better kind of out of this pandemic, now that we've had so much time to kind of think about things. How do you guys operate, and what are kind of some of your kind of core beliefs there at Core?
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
Those core beliefs are really just a support and uplift and change this paradigm in which we perceive impoverished or blighted conditions. And since we have a very low barrier to entry industry, essentially, because it's very labor intense when you come in. I know firsthand because my dad has always made myself and my siblings work, no matter what it is or what it was. And so the very low barrier to entry enables anybody with not a lot of experience or opportunities to be able to get a job. And so the pathway is figuring out how do we turn individuals who are coming in at entry level and turn them into a viable asset within this company. Not to say that the people on the entry level aren't the most valuable asset, because it's probably the hardest jobs in this company. But the reality is when a lot of people don't really see value in those kind of pay scales, I think it's important to us to help people see the future about what the opportunities present at this company, not only for themselves, but also for their families. As we have a lot of companies here that have family members that'll work here. So it's like one big family here of generational shifts. And I think that's kind of the model we want to take it on with into the future and continue to provide value add to the local community and, more importantly, the local economy.
Okay, so tell me, because your company, as far as we know, is a first. Explain how.
Well, in the waste industry, now first in what context?
You bill yourself as the first fully African American owned waste management company.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that was your question. Yeah, so I've done a lot of research and due diligence on this because I'm looking for that company, and I'm glad that this is a publicly aired situation here, because if that company does exist, I want them to contact me. But the only thing I've been able to find out there are a couple of companies that are Black owned, that are collection companies. And so in the waste industry, you have collection, you have facility processing, and then you have landfill, which is final disposal. We don't own a landfill, so we're not incentivized to landfill like many other companies are. And so our main motivation behind being in business is we're finding efficiencies and innovations around how we can keep things out of landfills, because landfill is essentially an expense to us. And so how do we turn that into a profit while creating a job and impacting the community and providing that closed loop system for our local economy and combating climate change and social unrest in the form of a new 21st century green collar job. So, to clarify, I haven't heard of any other companies that actually own a collection and a facility or a final destination that is Black owned. As far as I know, there are only other companies that actually just have a collection company, and we have collection and secondary, and working towards our new innovative platform, which is keeping waste out of landfills.
When I was asking Brenda, I'm like, I haven't seen their trucks, and I was trying to think, do I even know who my garbage company is? And she corrected me and said, you guys don't do residential waste pickup. Kind of explain to people who might be hearing your story and like, oh, I want to hire them. Like, what do you guys, who are your specific clients? And then give us some ideas of like how you keep stuff out of the landfill. I mean, is it reusing? Is it recycling certain metals? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, the system is residential in the city of Portland is the only area that is franchised. So it's a pay-to-play system. No one can ever get in it. Okay. And unless you have piles of cash on hand in order to buy somebody's company, which typically you have to have the infrastructure, which means the capital assets and all the other elements I was talking about earlier in order to even manage and operate that business. So it's a very weird dynamic, but it's industry not a lot of people pay attention to. But in terms of commercial, so anything outside of a single family residence, we could actually provide service for us, whether it's a grocery store or an industrial operation or a construction project, we can actually provide those services because we're a commercial hauler. The problem in that also is that we're only confined to the city of Portland. So there's waste companies that are all around the entire region and all the various cities that are in the Tri-County region, but a lot of them can compete in Portland. We're not allowed to compete outside of Portland. So it creates this weird disadvantage and inequity in the industry where we're capped with our growth. And so we can't grow anymore unless we essentially change policies. So it's not like, that's like somebody saying, oh, I want to go build an apartment complex in Gresham. And someone says, nope, you can't, because this is my dirt or this is my area and I'm the only one who's allowed to build here. So it's kind of a weird old 20th century model that, we're actually striving to modernize and innovate. And through the premise of innovation, this is how we're trying to create new outcomes of how people not only perceive waste, but upcycling, recycling, repurposing things such as wood, cardboard, metals, plastics, even waste itself, in terms of keeping it out of landfills and finding higher value purposes out of them. And again, the main goal here is creating jobs.
I want to give you a reintroduction. So we're talking with Alando Simpson. His dad, Al, started City of Roses Disposal and Recycling 25 years ago. Brenda did a fantastic piece on the business, part of her Black History Month Changemakers series. Alando, I'm wondering, when kids grow up in a family business, usually there's two ways they handle that. Either they run from it and go, I don't want any parts of this thing, or they jump into it and say, I want to be a part of this thing. You obviously chose the latter. So when did you realize, I want to be a part of this family business?
I was when I was talking to Brennan about this, I was explaining to her that I was actually in Atlanta at the time. I was living in Atlanta for about a year and a half, and I talked to my dad all the time, every day. And so at that moment, I realized, like, man, I'm here kind of just hanging out, kind of just doing my own thing, and this guy's working like nonstop, like for us. He's not working for himself. He's not the guy who's going to go, put his money on a brand new vehicle. He'll still go buy the cheapest vehicle he can find at the auction just because he believes that he has to own everything and not incur any type of debt.
Yeah.
And so I think his frugal mentality has not only been passed through to us, but it actually is a really good practice and value set in terms of most people in this society, because a lot of people, as we know, today's day and age, are very consumer based and depend heavily on credit. And it's something that concerns me about our future economic instabilities for this country, about the amount of debt this country is in. And so having that kind of idea of what things used to be, you buy it to own it, as opposed to just completely depending on credit and leveraging debt in order to obtain what it is you want or need. And I think that's an important thing to try to convey to the next generation.
Yes,
absolutely.
Speaking of the next generation, Alando is too humble to say this because he respects and loves his father, so he kind of wants the spotlight on his dad. But Al Simpson really did instill that work ethic and pay it forward mentality with his family. Alando, you have to talk about what CORE is looking to do in the future when it comes to youth, because so many times in the African American community, especially when we're talking about Black men, the ones that we celebrate are athletes or entertainers. We don't celebrate as much the business owner, and that's what you guys want to change and show the next generation as well.
Yeah, 100%. My dad has always been a big proponent of, owning things. And again, not having any debt. So pay your debt off immediately if you have any. But I really think what his foundation in terms of his values and principles that he's instilled in us very early are really important attributes to what will make a thriving, prosperous Black community in the 21st century. And the problem is everybody wants to try to restore what has already gone back in North and Northeast. And, I'm just more of a more practical mind frame, whereas like you don't try to take what's already been taken back. Now, we can't go backwards, but what we can do is go forward and reinstitute and create a model of how you actually create a livable, vibrant, economically prosperous Black community that is thriving, that is providing jobs, and that is fostering, middle income opportunities so people can become homeowners. And I think that is the paradigm shift I'm looking to hope encourage people to start adopting, especially for East Portland, since that is the part of the region that has the infrastructure, the zoning, the land mass, the populations in order to make these things become viable. And so I'm just, trying to encourage the next generation to think outside the box. I think Portland has branded itself as a sustainability leader on this entire planet. Except we are drastically failing in the conversation of social equity. And so how do we do that is we figure out how we're going to put our policies and our resources behind creating communities that are livable, that are prosperous, that are diverse, and that are fostering economic opportunities to keep and move people out of underserved conditions where they're dependent on social services. So they can actually build wealth. And I think that's what this is really about. We do live in capitalism, and I think some people forget that, and I don't understand how or why they do, but the reality is we're in capitalism. Unfortunately, there's winners and losers, and I'm just here to try to motivate and encourage people to start thinking about how to become more winners as opposed to adopting a losing mentality and living in a circumstance that doesn't foster any wealth creation.
Well said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, totally, yes. I agree. While you were doing all of this changing, Alando, I want to know, is that ping pong table getting any use out of it at the office?
Somewhat. I mean, my brother, he's a full-blown millennial.
Having meetings on the top of the ping pong table.
It was actually exciting because those pictures that we were looking at on that ping pong table were pictures where when we bought this property, 138th, so there's a little story there, is that this used to be an old recycling operation for the local garbage-owned companies within the Portland region. There were over 100 local garbage haulers. Today, there's like less than 12. And so as you can see, the industry is all modeled on consolidation and M&As. And so I think we need to try to broaden that model back out, because all the resources, I mean, we think we spend a few bucks a month, 30, 40 bucks a month for our garbage service, and that just goes away. The reality is those are their margins, and those margins don't stay here locally. Those margins go all the way back to other economies. And the question is how do we keep those resources local? How do we keep our human capital local? And how do we try to make higher value resources off of the people that we have here and the resources that we're unfortunately throwing away in order to make our economy better? And
All right.
I think those are the things for us to really embrace.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just going to say, City of Portland, Multnomah County, if you guys are watching this and have not hooked up with Alando Simpson and put him on some kind of advisory commission to think outside the box to help this entire, community, you should. Alando, you are inspirational to a lot of people. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time with us this morning and sharing your story and your dad's story. We so appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you taking the time to come out and hang out. And I would just encourage you to encourage others to divert their wasteful thinking.
Absolutely. I love that tagline, divert your wasteful thinking. Well said. And if you guys have missed any of our stories, the Changemaker locally stories, we've got it on KGW's YouTube channel. Have a great morning. See you tomorrow.